above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. When the walls have grown narrow, when the world has turned gray, when the headlines are harrowing day after day, as you wander and wonder how long you'll stay lost, remember the oceans and deserts we've already crossed. 'Cause next year, the doors will break open. Next year, we'll breathe in the sky. Though tomorrow's uncertain, we're gonna get by. So here's to next year. Here's to next year.
When the people are pleading, 'cause the day seems so stark. When there's nobody leading you out of the dark. Can't let the misery harden your heart. The worst will pass over, and one day the waters will part. 'Cause next year, next year, the world will break open. Next year,
Next
breathe in the sky.
Though tomorrow's uncertain, we're gonna get by.
Till it's here. So here's to next year.
Next year.
Here's to next year. Next year, the world will break open. We'll breathe in the sky.
As you wander and wonder how long you'll stay lost,
Remember the oceans and deserts we've already crossed.
wir harim salul kayayim, vereach urayim, nisan ruach arbaim, im kol ha'amonim. Uvtor dem matilon ba'even, shvuya b'chol, ha'ir asher badat yoshevet, uveliba choma. Yerushalayim, b'shel zevoshet ha'shemor, v'lelechonu shirayim, anikino. Yerushalayim, b'shel zevoshet ha'shemor, v'lelechonu shirayim, איכה ישוב אורות המים, כיכר השוק ריקה, והיא פוקדת על בית בעיר העתיקה. ובמורות אשר בסלע, מייללות תרופות, ואם יורד אל ים המלח, צורבת השפתיים, כי נשיקת שרף, אם אשכחך ירושלים, אשר כולה זהב. ירושלים של זהב, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך כינור. ירושלים, ירושלים, ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך כינור. I've got a roof over my head. I've got a warm place to sleep. Some nights I lie awake counting gifts instead of counting sheep. I've got a heart that can hold love. I've got a mind that can think. There may be times when I lose the light and let my spirit sink, but I can't stay depressed when I remember how I'm blessed. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. In a city of strangers, I've got a family of friends. No matter what rocks and brambles fill the way, I know they will stay until the end. I feel a hand holding my hand. It's not a hand you can see, but on the road to the promised land, this hand will shepherd me through delight and despair, holding tight and always there. Modim, modim, modim אנחנו לך. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. It's not that I don't want a lot, or hope for more, or dream of more, but giving thanks for what I've got makes me so much happier than keeping score in a world that can bring pain. I will still take each chance, for I believe that whatever the terrain, our feet can learn stone life may sling. We can moan or we can sing. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. Truly blessed and duly grateful. When the walls have grown narrow, when the world has turned gray, when the headlines are harrowing day after day, as you wander and wonder how long you'll stay lost, remember the oceans and deserts we've already crossed. 'Cause next year, the doors will break open. Next year, we'll breathe in the sky. Though tomorrow's uncertain, we're gonna get by till it's here. So here's to next year. Here's to next year.
When the people are pleading, 'cause the day seems so stark. When there's nobody leading you out of the dark. Can't let the misery harden your heart. The worst will pass over, and one day the waters will part. 'Cause next year, the world will break open. Next year, breathe in the sky.
Though tomorrow's uncertain, we're gonna get by.
Till it's here. So here's to next year.
Next year.
Here's to next year. Next year, the world will break open. We'll breathe in the sky.
As you wander and wonder how long you'll stay lost,
Remember the oceans and deserts we've already crossed.
the sound of one voice. One people, one voice. Shema Koleinu, hear our voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. Shema Koleinu, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too.
This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, worshiping as a community. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. Shema Koleinu, Shema Koleinu, Koleinu. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice. Shema Koleinu, hear our voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice. Shema Koleinu, hear our voice. This is the sound of one 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 voice.
Lishana Tova. Welcome to Temple B'nai Israel's Erev Rosh Hashanah Service. Cantor Orangel and I send our blessings to all of you during this most sacred season. Thank you for welcoming us into your home through your TV, computer, or iPad as we bring in the new year during these challenging times. Simone Biles sprints 82 feet and does a flip into a roundoff, propels herself from the vaulting platform, catapults from the vault, and launches heavenward. There she is, airborne, intending to do a 2.5 twist backflip, soaring majestically 9 feet above the ground. But suddenly, Biles doesn't know where she is. She has no sense of her body's angle in relation to the ground and does not know how she will land. Petrifying. She lands on her feet, albeit awkwardly. To most of us watching, it happened so fast that it was hard to see that something went awry. But as Biles walked to the sidelines, a perceptive commentator in near shock said, "It looked like she got lost in the air," which she did, a gymnast's nightmare. Biles was suffering from a dangerous condition with a deceptively silly name. The gold medal Olympian, arguably the best of all time, had the twisties. My friends, we enter this Rosh Hashanah suffering from a case of the twisties. Because of this pandemic, it is like we are all lost in a fog, not knowing which way is up. Disoriented, we stumble. This resurgence has left us feeling all a bit anxious, frustrated, and yes, even angry. We are burned out, exhausted, exasperated. It is like we are living in an olam hafuch, an upside-down world. It is a world of questions, doubts, and worry. A world which is so isolating, especially in this moment when we are at home and not together in our sanctuary. Being in this world of the twisties, leaves us all feeling broken, torn. While the pandemic rages on, while uncertainty abounds, how do we find our footing? How do we get ourselves out of the twisties? I think we may find the answer in one of my favorite parables, first told by Rabbi Chaim of Sants. A man had been wandering about in the forest for several days, unable to find a way out. Finally, in the distance, he saw another person approaching him, and his heart was filled with joy. He thought to himself, "Now surely I shall find my way out of the forest." When they neared each other, he called out, "Brother, will you please tell me the way out of the forest?" The other replied, "Brother, I also do not know the way out, for I too have been wandering for many days. But this much I can tell you, the path I have gone leads nowhere. It has only led me astray. But now let us join hands and search for the way together." My friends, as we are standing at the doorway of a new year, year 5782, let us gain strength from one another as we confront the continued challenge of the pandemic. Let us hold each other up emotionally and spiritually so that no one struggles alone. Things may feel up in the air, upside down and inside out, but if we reach out, if we support each other, our loved ones, and our community, we will find our way back to our feet together. L'shana tova. We welcome in the new year with the lighting of candles. We're on page 11 in our prayer books. The first mitzvah in the Torah is "Let there be light." So we are commanded, in everything you do, be a menorah, a bringer of light. Live with honor, act with integrity, do your work with passion, and the radiance of your deeds will live after you. May our ideals burn bright, forever unextinguished, and may we live our lives like the flames we kindle, always stretching upward, striving for the good, reaching for you.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel yom tov.
We're on the next page, page 12. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. This is a season of the soul, a time to rejoice, a time to reflect, a time to turn. A time to gather round the table with loved ones and friends, a time for song and silence, for prayer and confession to the open heart, a time to retreat into our sanctuaries within, a time to renew the life and spirit of our community. This is a season of attentiveness, a time to notice what has unfolded and what has not, a time to regret, a time to forgive, a time to remember cherished dreams and high ideals erased by reality. This is the season of hope, like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn. Our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice. This is the season of awe. When our eyes behold it, may we feel blessed. When we turn toward each other, let us feel strength. When we seek the holy, may we find purpose. May we find courage. May we find love. We continue on page 15. Please rise.
תיקעו בחודש שופר, בכסל יום הגינו, כי חוק לישראל הוא משפט לאלוהי יעקב.
As we begin our service this evening, the cantor will recite a traditional prayer known as Hineni. In this prayer, the Shechet Tzibur, the prayer leaders, acknowledge the holy responsibility they possess in leading a community in prayer. It reflects the humility and self-awareness necessary for approaching God during these days of awe, for the task of Cheshbon HaNefesh, taking an account of one's soul. May we all display the humility during these days of awe to look inside ourselves, reflecting on who we are and who we would like to become. We turn to page 17. Please rise as we open the ark.
נרעש ונבחר מפחד
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Yehi ratzon shenizkeh livrotecha b'shnat 5,782. Elohei olam barech otanu ve'et kol beit Yisrael b'chidush yamenu, b'simcha uv'shalom, b'nechama uv'ometz lev, b'chilutz atzamot uveruach eitana. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5782. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life. We now turn to page 20 as we continue with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. On Rosh Hashanah, we proclaim, Hayom Harat Olam. This is the day of the world's birth. It is a time to celebrate the wonders of creation, the beauty of God's world. During this past year, many of us have taken to spending more time outdoors. Nature, always a blessing to us, has also been our refuge. We strolled barefoot on the beach, with the tide lapping at our toes. We sat under tall trees, relaxing in their shade while reading a book. We hiked up mountains, breathing in the crisp, cool air and marveling at the majestic views. We gazed up at a blanket of stars, contemplating the vastness of our universe. In these moments, we think of the words of our tradition, Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, Kulam b'chokhma asita. How great are your works, O God, in your wisdom you have created them all. Or, put another way, O God, what a wonderful world.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Shani roeh b'chaloni et shemorit lecha v'gam li ani shar le'atzmi eze achla olam. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. V'hayom kol yafeh, v'kali kol kach, lomar shani ohev otach. Hashamayim chulim, anan hu lavan, v'haboker ba'ir, u'balayla vashan, ve'achlom le'atzmi, eze achla olam.
We continue now on page 25, and I invite all of you who are at home to please pray with me in the English. Shema Yisrael, hear the voice of Hannah. Truly there is no one as holy as the Eternal. There is none beside you. There is no rock like our God. Shema Yisrael, hear the call of Moses. Embrace and carry in your hearts this day, in heaven above, on earth below. Adonai is God, there is none else. Shema Yisrael, hear the words of the mystics. There is nothing but God. No place and no person is empty of God. The whole earth is suffused with God's glory. Hear, O Israel, God's hands are our hands. God's work is our work. God's voice speaks through us. God is one when we are one. Please rise. Please be seated. We continue with V'ahavta on page 28.
Asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uvsholchpecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisha'arecha lema'an tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem lelohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
We continue now on page 33. To break the bonds of anger, to be generous of heart, to break the bonds of shame, to live with self-respect, to break the bonds of envy, to serve one another in joy, to break the bonds of boredom, to be attentive to all God's gifts, to break the bonds of fear, to live with courage and strength, to untie the knots of betrayal, to love with fullness of being, to break the bonds of loneliness, to receive a hand of hope, to break the bonds of self-centeredness, to extend a hand of help. Released from the darkness, our people found their freedom at the sea, and we pray for liberation at the dawning of this year. On page 34, we continue together with Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'edor b'kodesh, norot hilot osei pele, malchutecha ra'uvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Zeli anu
continue now on page 36 with Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Ushmor tzeitenu, uvoenu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu
Eloheinu leShalom,
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom,
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom,
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom,
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
In Pirkei Avot, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi teaches, reflect on three things and you won't come to sin. Know what is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and that all your deeds are recorded in a book. A central theme of the High Holy Days is the idea that all of our actions are transcribed in our own personal book of life, Sefer HaChaim. This concept is emphasized during the Amidah, specifically in the unique passages recited only during this sacred season, in which we ask God to remember us, to inscribe us in the book of life, and grant us peace and blessing. The idea of a physical book of life, of all of our actions being recorded, is an intimidating premise. But we have to admit, if true, it would likely have major implications on our behavior. For who wouldn't act differently if they believed that every one of their actions were being recorded in some kind of heavenly ledger? Wouldn't we be more careful with our words or think twice about sending that email? If we all believed our actions were being written down for eternal posterity, would we make an extra effort to be more kind, patient, and generous? If we knew, if we were sure that each action had a divine consequence, would we work harder to be better people? However, my friends, if we really think about it, our actions do have divine consequences. For each one of us is created in the image of God, B'Tselem Elohim, possessing a kernel of the divine within us. Everyone's got a little God in them. So when we, through words or actions, hurt our neighbors, It has heavenly implications. As God adjures the Israelites, you shall not afflict any widow or orphan. If you do afflict them and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry. God stands with the sufferer, the wounded. For any injury we inflict upon each other is an affront to the divine. Whether or not we believe in a literal book of life, it's a profound metaphor, reminding us that all of our deeds have an impact. Every action has a consequence, a resonance, both in this world and in the divine realm. The high holy days remind us we are accountable to our loved ones, to our neighbors, to strangers, and to God. On page 42, please rise for the Amidah HaTefilah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chaste Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zochrenu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chutvenu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim chaim. Zochrenu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chutvenu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim chaim. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Micha mocha el harachamim, Zocher yitzurav lechayim berachamim, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol, Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, Ukdoshim b'chol yom, Yehalelu chasela.
We continue on page 49. Uvechen tein pachtecha Adonai Eloheinu al kol ma'asecha ve'emotcha al kol ma shebarata. And so in your holiness give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear into reverence. Let us be witnesses of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation. all-encompassing your transcendent name. Uvechein tein kavod, Adonai le'amecha, and so in your holiness give your people the gift of honor. Bless with praise those who praise you. Bless with hope those who seek you. Give your believers a basis for faith, true happiness in the land of Israel, true joy in Jerusalem. May the sparks of David, your servant, soon grow bright enough for us to see, a beam of light in the darkness, a promise of perfection. Uvechein tzadakim yir'u v'yismachu, and so in your holiness give the righteous the gift of a vision bright with joy, a world where evil has no voice, and the rule of malevolence fades like wisps of smoke. Good people everywhere will celebrate the stunning sight of arrogance gone from the earth. On page 52, V'timloch ata Adonai levadecha al kol ma'asecha. You and you alone, Adonai, will reign over creation upon Mount Zion, the home of your presence, and in Jerusalem, a city set apart by you. As the psalmist believed, Adonai will reign eternally, your God, Zion, for all generations. Hallelujah. You are holy, your name is awe. There is nothing divine beyond you, as the prophet Isaiah taught. The source of all might is exalted through justice, the God of holiness made holy through righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh. We're now going to turn to page 54. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letovah.
Amen.
Ufokdenu vo lechaim.
Amen.
V'hoshienu vo lechaim.
Amen.
Eternal our God, remember us.
Amen.
Be mindful of us.
Amen.
And redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing.
Amen.
Favor us with words of deliverance and mercy. Show us the depth of your care. God, we await your redemption, for you reign with grace and compassion. We continue on page 60. 66 as we continue with a prayer for peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom v'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael v'cholit ufosha B'sefer Chayim beracha v'shalom beracha v'shalom u'farnasa tova beracha v'shalom nizacher v'nikaytiv lefanecha אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
We take a few moments for our own personal meditation.
Hashivenu, Adonai elecha, v'nashuva, Kadesh, Kadesh, Yaminu kekedem. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai elecha, v'ashivenu, Hashivenu, v'Adonai elecha,
We're on page 74. Avinu Malkeinu, strong was the faith of generations before us. In exile, they proclaimed enduring hope. In the shadow of persecution, they affirmed the transcendent love and compassion. Ours is a different age, less confident and certain, more tentative in its trust. There are many who say to the work of their hands, "You are our gods." But when our worship centers on our own creations, we feel less gratitude, more doubt and despair. This is the paradox of our spiritual lives. We grow smaller in self-exaltation, nobler when we reach for you. On this night of return, let us find the humility to come close to you and open ourselves to your presence. For you are absent only when we fail to make room for you in our hearts, distant only when we turn away from you. Now, as others have done before us, let us overcome doubt and speak these words of affirmation. We call you Avinu. As loving parent, forgive our wrongs and failings. Accept us in our human frailty. We call you Malkeinu. As sovereign of our souls, help us rise from our brokenness to build a world of shalom. To this vision, we offer ourselves anew. Please rise. Please be seated. Once upon a time, the most beautiful bird which anyone had ever seen landed in the small town of Chelm. It was proud and stately in stature, with vibrant, colorful plumage, with a wingspan which looked as if it could block out the sun. And if that weren't enough, its song was so evocative, so expressive, it had the power to touch the heart of even the most stoic of passers-by. Such a bird was never seen before in this village, but here it stood, perched right atop the tallest tree in town. The people of Chelm marveled at this magnificent sight, as no one had ever laid eyes on such a resplendent creature. But soon, just viewing this beautiful bird, it was not enough. The Chelmites agreed. They needed to capture it for themselves. For you see, the townsfolk were poor, struggling to make ends meet. They believed if only they could catch it, the bird would become an attraction for visitors to the small town. People would pay good money to look upon its beauty, to hear its song, to reach out and touch one of its colorful feathers. If only they could capture it, their little shtetl would become famous, and all of its financial troubles would disappear. However, there was a problem. No one in town had a ladder. How could they climb up this tree without a ladder? The townspeople huddled together, throwing out ideas until Mendel the Chelmite, the wisest of all the town, came up with a plan. They would form a human pyramid, climbing on top of each other until Mendel would scale this mass of humanity and grab the bird, securing not only this dazzling creature, but the town's financial future. Everyone agreed to this plan and began to form up, with the strongest of the village taking their place as the base, and others climbing on their backs. With great effort, this human pyramid took form, ascending, it seemed, to the heavens. Mendel was so excited, as his vision was becoming a reality, and now it was his turn. He began to climb, stepping on backs, necks, and shoulders as he strained ever higher. He could see the bird getting closer, only mere feet away. Mendel kept going, reminding himself not to look down. Now the bird was only an arm's length away. He could just about reach up and capture it. Except, at that very moment, Yankel, one of the strong individuals at the base of the pyramid, began to have second thoughts about this plan. He was tired, exhausted by the exertion of supporting all of this weight. He began thinking, will capturing this bird really help me? Sure, it'll help the town, but will I benefit? I'm just one person. What difference does it make to me? So he decided to get up and head back to his cottage. He heard yelling behind him, but he ignored it and went on his way. If Yankel had bothered to look back, he would have witnessed quite a calamitous scene. All of a sudden, the pyramid began to wobble. People lost their balance. Then crash! Bodies were falling, arms and legs flailing, coming down in a huge heap, with Mendel, who almost had the bird in his grasp, landing on top of the pile. As you could guess, everyone was a bit worse for wear, bodies battered and bruised. But the physical discomfort the Chelmites experienced was nothing compared to the sadness they felt when they looked up and saw the beautiful bird flying away, taking with it their hope for a better future. To this day, they look up at the sky, wondering if they will ever receive a second chance. In this moment, we feel the disappointment of the townspeople of Chelm. What we longed for, what we dreamed of, a return to normalcy, seemed within our grasp. People were getting vaccinated, positivity rates were down, and all of us, at our own pace, were beginning to re-enter the world. With the proliferation of the vaccine, people enthusiastically began heading back to their favorite restaurants, going to ball games and amusement parks, and most importantly, reuniting with family and friends, too long only available via phone and Zoom. And here at the temple, we made great strides in the springtime, as, following CDC guidelines, we began a phased reopening process. With great excitement, we anticipated worshiping together in our sacred space, ushering in this new year. With the pandemic seemingly subsiding, we were ready to return, to reconnect, and re-energize. We were on the right path until it all came tumbling down around us. So here we are again, another High Holy Day season in which we are unable to gather as a community. Worried about possible infection, people are once again changing plans, canceling trips, scaling back their activities. Politicians and pundits are continuing to debate with the scientific and medical community about vaccines, with misinformation spewing forth like a toxic geyser. Parents are concerned, if not downright terrified, about sending their kids back to school due to the lack of masks, while others vociferously argue against any mask requirements. The elderly and the immunocompromised find themselves once again at greater risk. It's a terrible case of deja vu. There is frustration, anger, and exhaustion that as a community, a county, a state, and a country, we have thus been unable to overcome this pandemic. These feelings are real, valid, and appropriate at this difficult moment. But beyond these intense emotions is a deeper ideological struggle. There's an underlying conflict which fuels so much of our societal discord, namely the dichotomy between personal choice and communal responsibility. For the fight against COVID-19 brings to the forefront how much individual actions affect the greater population. Are masks a personal choice or a necessary tool to stop the spread of infection? Should there be a vaccine requirement to attend concerts, board a cruise ship, participate at a religious service, even to be hired for a job? Where does a person's right to bodily autonomy fit with the preservation of the societal weal? How do we balance the rights of the individual against the needs of the community? In his ethical treatise, What We Owe Each Other, Harvard philosopher T.M. Scanlon attempts to define our obligations to each other. His philosophy, known as contractualism, maintains that we live in relationship to each other and need to judge our actions by how they impact others. In short, contractualism maintains that we owe it to other people to treat them in accordance with their value as living human beings. It is a recognition of the innate sameness and sacredness which exists in each individual. Further, Scanlon's philosophy states that there is an intangible but irrefutable social and moral contract which binds us all together. Is it just me, or does that sound an awful lot like the concept of covenant? In Jewish thought, we are bound together in a covenant with God, an eternal promise first made to Abraham. God proclaims to Abraham that his descendants will be a great nation, establishing a homeland in the land of Canaan. Marked in the flesh of Jewish males through the rite of circumcision, This covenant is then affirmed by the entire Israelite congregation at the foot of Mount Sinai, where we would accept the Torah and our divine mission to be a light to the nations. All of us are inheritors of that promise, forever bonded to God through this covenant. Scanlon reminds us that the concept of covenant does not only define our relationship with God, but also with each other. We live in community with our loved ones, our friends, the strangers in our midst. And because we live in community, we must all agree upon the basic principles of getting along with other people. For Scanlon, this means we must strive to act in accordance with the famous aphorism attributed to the great sage Hillel: "What is hateful to you, do not do to any other person." Foundational to our faith, Judaism forbids any action which will endanger an individual's well-being. Known as the principle of sakanat nefashot, we are prohibited from, whether intentionally or inadvertently, causing a situation that may cause harm or injury to any living being. We find a plethora of examples in the Torah. If a person digs a pit, it is their responsibility to ensure safeguards are put in place so no one accidentally stumbles. If a person starts a fire and it causes damage to someone else's property, restitution must be made. We are commanded to put parapets on our rooftops to prevent anyone from falling. Whatever we do, we must ensure that no one comes to harm through our actions, remembering our duty to protect each other. The needs of others must be as precious to us as our own, and perhaps even more so, depending on the circumstance. It isn't always easy to put other people's needs ahead of our own. The Torah speaks of a person's obligation when they come across lost property belonging to their neighbor. If they happen to stumble upon their neighbor's garment, their purse, even their ox, they are to return it with haste. But what happens if it's a schlep to get there? Well, in that case, you bring it back to your house and wait for the individual to collect it. And what if you don't know whose lost property you found? Same rule. You hold on to it for safekeeping until the owner comes forward. Now, this mitzvah isn't always convenient. Imagine taking care of an ox that isn't yours. That's a really big cost. But we must still do all we can to help. The passage concludes with these words: Lo tuchal lehitalem. You shall not remain indifferent. We are not allowed to be apathetic, uncaring. Our neighbor's property should matter to us as much as our own. Why is this such an important concept? In the words of Rabbi Harvey Fields, a society depends upon the faith people place in one another. Without people feeling they can rely on one another, that others are looking out for what belongs to me, and I must look out for what belongs to you, society collapses into suspicion, selfishness, and bitter contention. Now, if this is the case for a person's property, which at best is an extension of the self, how much the more so when it comes to preserving and safeguarding the individual themselves? If we must care about our neighbor's belongings, we must care for them as well. We must not remain indifferent. This pandemic has reminded us that being part of a community means sacrificing for the greater good. For as Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik taught, while there are times the community must sacrifice itself on behalf of the individual, there are times when the individual must sacrifice themselves for the good of the community. In other words, being part of a community sometimes means subsuming one's own will. Sometimes it requires performing an action with which we may not fully agree. It requires sacrifice. But unlike Abraham, we are not being asked to sacrifice our children, but rather we are being asked to sacrifice for our children, for the immunocompromised, for the elderly, for each other. My friends, this Rosh Hashanah, we need to make the decision. Do we wish to be like Yankel, whose actions caused his community great disappointment and harm? Or do we want to work together for the welfare of the community, making the personal choice to sublimate our desires for the greater good? Would we rather do whatever we want, rejecting any sense of communal accountability, or decide to dedicate ourselves to putting the needs of the community before our own personal wishes? Do we succeed as a community, or do we fail on our own? The choice, my friends, is ours. Shana Tova. We now continue with Aleinu. Please rise as we turn to page 82.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, la'tekedu la'liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu koreim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
We turn to page 87. Death will come. Its hand will not be stayed even an instant, nor can we enter into judgment with it. Our question, why, will go unanswered. But this does not mean that we are helpless in the face of death. We can and do rob death of ultimate victory by living a life as long as it is ours to live. To ask of death that it never come is futile, but it is not futility to pray that when death comes for us, it may take us from a world one corner of which is a little better because we were there. When we are dead and people weep for us and grieve, let it be because we touched their lives with beauty and simplicity. Let it not be said that life was good to us, but rather that we were good to life. We now turn to page 90 as we join together in Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach leolam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'richu. Ve'ela mikol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, Amen. Please be seated. As we are about to conclude our service, We would like to remind everyone that our Rosh Hashanah morning service begins at 10:15 a.m. and may be viewed through our streaming service. Our Young Family service takes place at 9 a.m. on Zoom, led by the cantor and myself. Should be a fun one. Thank you to Angela Wackler, Sandy Sunter, and Pete Tanner for all of their terrific work in the office. We appreciate all of the hours they put in to help us get to this moment, especially in light of the changes necessary during the past month. Another thank you to Pete and also to Brian Wackler for all of their help with the videos. Thank you to our accompanist, Maria Laude, for helping us create such an inspiring evening of prayer. Thanks to Matt, Chris, and the entire crew of Coombs Digital for helping us bring the service to the congregation. Thanks also to Ray Sepko, who helped us run smoothly this evening. Thanks to Al Rodriguez, Manny Cordero, and Sonia Garces for all of their work behind the scenes, not only during the holidays, but throughout the year. And a special thanks to our local law enforcement for providing security for us this evening. A couple of further announcements. Thursday, September 9th, is the last day to put in your order for our Tampa Bay Jewish Food Festival drive-through event. All of your favorites are back, so you don't want to miss out. A little pastrami, a little corned beef, maybe even a Junior's cheesecake. Visit the temple website or check your email for the link to order. Also, Saturday evening, September 11th at 5:30 p.m. at Sankey Park, we will gather together to commemorate the 20th anniversary of 9/11. During this service, we will honor those who lost their lives during this horrific act of terrorism and speak words of hope and consolation. Afterwards, at 6:30 p.m., we will perform the ritual of Tashlich, symbolically casting our sins away into the sea. Come for one or both services. Feel free to bring a beach chair, some towels, and a bite to eat as we stay and watch the sunset. On Sunday, September 12th, we will gather at our local cemeteries to observe the tradition of Kever Avot, the custom of visiting the graves of our loved ones in order to express our continued love and connection to those who came before us. There will be 3 opportunities to participate. At 1 p.m., there will be a service at Serenity Gardens in Largo, as well as a service at Sylvan Abbey in Clearwater. The final service will be at 2:30 p.m. at Curlew Hills in Palm Harbor. Once again, we want to wish everyone a Shana Tova Umetuka, a good and sweet year. And now let's continue with Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Amen. Look, my mouth's full.
I learned this lesson a few months ago. But it's a great challah, and it's the challah that got delivered to you, Rabbi, right? Well, you delivered so many challah breads, as well as so many people who helped deliver challahs. So we all have the same challah to enjoy this evening.
Yes, and a big thank you to all of our volunteers who helped us out with that fantastic project. It was a lot of fun. We're on page 98 as we conclude with our benediction. Our God and God of all generations before us, may it be your will in the coming year to grant us a year of abundance and atonement, a year of blessings bestowed and received, a year of community and compassion, a year of delight and exaltation, a year of enlightenment, a year of friendship and forgiveness, a year of going up in gladness to the land of Israel, a year of health and healing and humor, a year of inner strength and well-being, a year of joy and Jewish celebration, a year of knowledge and learning for its own sake, a year of love between parents and children, friends and spouses, brothers and sisters, a year of mitzvot and moments of sweetness, a year of nature protected and enjoyed, a year of optimism and hope, a year of peace pursued with perseverance, a year of quiet and tranquility, a year of rain in its season, a year of song and spiritual growth, a year of Torah study and tikkun olam, a year of understanding and unity, a year of vows fulfilled and violence overcome, a year of wisdom acquired and shared, a year of coexistence among the families of the earth, a year of young and old reaching out to one another, a year of Zion aglow with light for us and for all the world. Our God and God of the generations before us, grant us a year of gratitude to you for the most profound of blessings, your gift of life. Yehi ratzon milfanecha adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, shetchadesh aleinu shana tova umetuka. Our God and God of our ancestors, eternal God of all generations, may your presence in our lives this new year renew our spirits and renew our strength. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova, and have a wonderful year.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova Umatuka.
Want to wish everyone on the Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody. May we have a good and sweet year.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova, good year for everyone.
Shana Tova, TVI.
The Shana Tova, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Shana Tova. Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Tova. Happy New Year.
Go. Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
I'd like to wish a Shana Tova to everybody. Happy New Year. Shana Tova to everyone.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova. Take a table. Shana Tova, everyone. The Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, Tikatevu. Shana Tova to everybody.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, TBI.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everybody. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Wishing everyone a happy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, Temple B'nai Israel.
Shana Tova.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, everyone.